Hey, good peeps. Welcome to Lovely J Podcast. It's me, Miss Coco. And, what am I doing here? I'm fixing something to eat. And we're going to talk a little bit about that word MF. Now, I did rate this podcast as explicit just because we are talking about cuss words. And it's just specifically this one cuss word that we're talking about that I know some of everybody done said before, whether you were saved or unsaved. At some point in your life, you probably used the word and you meant it, because sometimes cuss words are our way of expressing ourselves. At least that's what we learned how to. We learned how to express ourselves through cussing. What am I looking for? I'm looking for something over. Oh, it's right here in front of me. So we learned that way. We learned how to express ourselves through cussing, and that's not always good because it's very offensive. And for one reason, that's why we'll do it, because we know it offends somebody. We know cussing people out is fighting words. Y'all, I'm just getting my little crackers out here so I can make me some peanut butter crackers to go along with my. What am I having? I'm having leftover spinach and white bean pasta. It's good. You should try it. Very good. Easy to make. Made it straight. It's so easy. Don't take no time at all. Everything was either frozen or canned, or, just easy, simple pasta. Then add what all you want in it. Tomatoes, whatever. And it's yours, baby. Eat it like it is. Now, these cuss words, though, I was shocked to learn what I learned about the cuss word MF. Now, y'all know what MF stands for, MFer. You know what it stands for. I don't have to say it. Excuse me. Every time I start talking, throat want to just go out. That MF word is something that people are so proud of saying, and they have used it, for many years, and if we be honest with ourselves, we still find ourselves using words like that and proud to use those kind of words because we don't know what they really mean. Or we just use them because, it sounds good. That's what somebody else was saying. So, yeah, we're going to use it to our benefit to see if we can get the same response we saw our grandparents or cousins and uncles get when they use that word. Some people think those words are funny. And they are funny at times. Cuss words can be funny, because when somebody get cussed out, or say for instance, if you have a drunk and this drunk is swearing, that's all they doing is swearing. What do we do these days? We pull out our phones, we start recording it, we start laughing about it, and, it becomes comedy to us, but it's offensive to God, and this is why. And I'm glad I took the time to study on this, because it represents death, dehumanizing. It takes away the image of God from the person that you are cussing out and calling this name to. And I never would have thought nothing about that until this black man came on TikTok. Y'all know TikTok, we can get a lot of stuff off of there. And here's what he had to say about it. If you want to go follow him and see the video for yourself, I did repost it off of my page at Miss Coco Boughton, so you can go on there and listen to it. But he said everything is connected to slavery. And this was his part 3 that I caught hold of. And I ain't even seen part 1 and 2, but I saw part 3, and when I saw part 3, it made me instantly want to study more. Because I thought to myself, well, I've used these words before, and I had no idea that the MF word was tied to slavery. No idea at all. Just running around here drinking and cussing. Not realizing that I was degrading somebody, dehumanizing somebody, breaking a black man down further than what he already was. I had no idea. Now I feel bad about the many times I called my ex that. And y'all know I ain't been saved all my life. And when I had exes, that's who they became to me. And I would say that. And I knew the words hurt, but I didn't know why it hurted. Now, listen to what this kid has to say.
Word mother was created by slave owners. So the white slave owners would take a black man and then force him to have with his own mother. And then to mess with his head and to belittle him even more.
Okay, so what he's saying here, because he had to bleep it out on there so they don't take him out. But on here, I've already labeled it explicit so I can say it straight out. What he's saying is this word came from slave owners. They would dehumanize the black men back in those days, the slaves, because they would break them in by having them to sleep with their mothers, and then they would make them have sex with their mothers, and then taunt them and belittle them and, make fun of them for this reason, and they called them mother uckers. Can I say it like that? They call them mother uckers. Okay, let him keep going.
To taunt him, they will call him a mother. So basically they said, I'm going to make you do something so sick, and then I'm going to taunt you and make you feel like you just wanted to do it. It's stuff like that about slavery that just be pissing me off, because how was that necessary at all? It shows that slavery was so much deeper than wanting somebody to work on a plantation. No, they wanted to destroy our minds. They wanted to make us literally feel like animals. Like, I've never even heard of nothing like that. Like, that's some type of shit that you see in, like, I don't know, but, bro, the stuff that they was doing on those plantations was unheard of, y'all. Y'all think it's just simple, but it's so deep. They wanted to make us feel inhumane. They tried to rip the men of their manhood, rip the women of their womanhood, just... So again, for all the people that just say, that was hundreds of years ago and it don't matter. No, y'all, it's deep. Do your research and you will be shocked. And you will never ever speak against black people again. Crazy that slavery still impacts the way we speak. Like, bro, that word is one of the most common used curse words, and it's used by all type of people, black, white, everything. Like, just know that when you're using that word, it's some sick slavery history behind that. Did y'all know that the curse word...
So this word, in other words, to those of us who use this word, now we become the perverts. Now we are spreading the perversion. We are spreading the master's idea of perversion and dehumanizing and breaking another person down. And as he said, the blacks are using it, the whites are using it, Hispanics are using it. Everybody, not everybody, but people who cuss, they use this word. And this is one of the favorite cuss words. Everything is funny tied to this cuss word until you know the background on it. So I didn't just take his word for it. What I decided to do was go and dig a little bit further. Now, let me see.
Her mother was created by slave owners.
Okay, yeah. So I didn't just take his word for it. What I decided to do was go to Google, and I started looking up some things. Where did cuss words come from? Who started this cuss word? I mean, is it true about this cuss word is tied to, sons having to have sex with their mothers on account of the slave masters? And lo and behold, it was true. And then I found that Frederick Douglass had a book on it. The Narrative of Frederick Douglass. The Narrative Life of Frederick Douglass. That's the name of the book. And you can look it up on YouTube, and they got the audio there. And on Google, they have the printable version. You can either buy it or you can read it straight, like I did last night. I read the book last night along with the audio. I had the audio playing it, and I was reading right along with it. It was gut-wrenching to hear some of the things that Frederick Douglass said that he witnessed. Now, this was written by Frederick Douglass himself. He would not allow anybody else to write this book. And so he put it in there just the way he wanted to be seen. He had these stories after stories after stories in this book, and it takes like 3 hours to read, y'all. So if you got time to go read or listen to it, go check it out. he said the same thing. He said that the way to break in black men or these slaves was through dehumanizing them, to make them feel like animals, treat them like animals, give them no break, no education, because once a man becomes educated, in their eyes, he became a man. So he wasn't really considered a man. And these were words that they would use. The Ucker word was the word that they would use to humiliate these guys, to break these guys down so that they could control them. In other words, this word is a form of witchcraft. When somebody is around you and they're calling you that, that is a form of witchcraft, because in order to gain control, this is what they were calling those men, those slaves. And here we is up here repeating it, thinking we saying something, thinking we doing something, trying to look tough and bad, not realizing we ain't doing nothing but spitting out witchcraft. We ain't no better than they are. That's why history is important. And I used to didn't pay attention to history like that. But when I started going through the situation that I started going through in these last 3 years with the Invisibles, that's what really woke me up to start paying attention to history. And this young man just happened to come across my TikTok, and I didn't know that that cuss word was tied to slavery. I thought I didn't know what to think about. I didn't think nothing about it, to be honest. I just, would use it when I was younger, and before I got saved, I used it all the time and cuss people out. And if I get angry, I used it. If I'm laughing at somebody, MF, or you crazy, just using it all kind of ways, not realizing the perversion that is attached to this and the control that is attached to this. So just remember, next time somebody calls you a mother ucker, just remember it's because they trying to break your mind down and they trying to control you. This word is a form of perversion. It is. We hear a lot of rap songs with it, and not realizing we sitting up here dancing and chanting things. We speaking curses over ourselves. We sitting up here enslaving ourselves just by using these words. Let me start heating up my food because I'm about done with this. But in Frederick Douglass' book, not only were the sons, having to mess with the mothers and being called that, but after the mothers got to a certain age of bearing kids and got old where they couldn't do what they wanted to do. Now, this was the sad part, too, about his grandma. And this is why he is said to have fought for women the way he fought for women and to abolish slavery. His grandma, and I got to thinking about it, I did. His grandma got to the age where she lived to see her grandchildren and her great-grandchildren. But she was still of use then. She was still able to help take care of the kids that were coming in, so they could be slaves and, they be healthy, go out there and work the fields and things. When she got to the place where she could no longer even help with the kids, you know what that master did to her, that slave owner did to her? Her name was Betsy Bailey, I believe. Let me make sure. Y'all know we be having to fact check. We be having to Google things. Thank God for Google. Okay, I'm going to try to pull it up here. Frederick Douglass's grandmother was Betsy Bailey. Yeah, I was right. Yes, I remember that. She raised Douglass after his mother was sold away and he was born at Home Hill Farm. Betsy worked for Captain Anthony and his family her entire life and had many children and grandchildren who were also enslaved by the Anthonys. In the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, Douglass describes the cruel fate of his grandmother. After Captain Anthony died, Betsy was not emancipated and was instead forced to live alone in a shed in the woods. Did y'all hear that? She was forced to live in a shed in the woods. Once she got where she couldn't do nothing, they didn't have nobody bring her no food, no water, nothing. She had to go out there to that little shed and fend for herself out there. Nobody, she was estranged from her kids, her great-grandchildren. She could see them from a distance, but she was not allowed to be part of that life anymore. Once she got to that age, treated her like a dog. Treated her like a dog. When I read that part, I said, Lord have mercy. I need to go check on my mama. Now I'm not gonna lie, that convicted me right there, because it made me realize that slavery is still here. You just can't see it like it was back then, but we still got some slave mentalities here, and in my case, like I said, with the invisibles, the people who be doing things, and then hiding their hands, or you can't see them when they're coming around doing things to you. Now, what if this is just what happened? What if that was the plan all along? To split up families so they could have more control over these families. And in 2024, so they can have more control over properties, gentrification. If you get rid of the heads or the matriarchs of the family, if you break them down, then we can separate the family. Because when people pass away, the head of the family passes away. What does that do? It causes chaos, confusion. People be fussing and fighting, calling each other the M-upper word. And once that starts taking place, what happens? Somebody steps up and says, well, let's just sell the property. Let's just get rid of it. And then if you got any patriarch left that's of some age, you always got that one child that comes in that has a new way of thinking. Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. But that new way of thinking goes into, well, what if we sell the property because it ain't doing no good? We might as well take the money and go, we can buy a home with it or get something good with it. And then that person takes the money, keeps it all for themselves. Never buys the home for the older lady. And now the older lady, the family's divided. Everybody gets so mad and lacks understanding to what these hidden slave masters are doing. I call them hidden because they're not straight out in plain sight. They can get you so angry that you'll give away your inheritance, everything that is meant for you to prosper on. You'll be ignorant to Satan's devices and give away the wealth that God has allowed to be created for the next generation. And what happens to the older person that's left behind? That older person is probably in a nursing home or somewhere getting used and abused by their kids, money getting taken left or right. That's what they want you to do. They want you to hurt your elders because underneath the elders, you are protected. That's what you don't realize. Even if your elder can't offer you a glass of water, one thing God said, wherever you sit, go to the elders, go among the elders. The elders got stories and history that needs to be heard. But they're not going to share it with everybody. They'll share it with somebody they trust and not going to share it with those who they feel are thieves. Anytime you see elders that are very scared of their own children or great-grandchildren, they have a right to be. It's something that has done happened to them and left them in that position to be scared. And how did this get started? Off the MF word. MF, Mother Ucker. That's how I got started. Off in those words right there. Back in slavery day. It's still relevant just underneath different names. You know when somebody files bankruptcy and then they come back and they have another store? Well, how'd you get that other store? Oh, I just put it in another name. Or that's the same with this. They break black people down. They go to the dumbest one in the family, who often thinks that they're the smartest one, and they get convinced that one that we got what you need. We will build a brighter day, a brighter future for you, and they do nothing. Now, like Frederick Douglass's grandma, you know, she was put in that shed by herself. It reminded me of what the townspeople told me here in Canada. Well, just buy a barn, put her in the barn. That's what he said about my mother, who is my grandmother, but adopted me. 90-some years old, she's trying to replace the house that burned down, and they said, well, just go get a barn. Just get a barn and put there. You won't have to have no permit or nothing. Just go get a barn. She can stay in the barn. History repeating itself because we're not taking time to learn. We are letting money and social media drive us beyond our time. Speed time up on us. Make us anxious about tomorrow. Make us turn against one another. And quite frankly, that is... I read that story and I said, I seem like that's what my mother is going through right now, and my biological mama. They going through the same thing right now as Frederick Douglass' grandmother went through back then. So times haven't really changed. The players have. The laws really didn't change to benefit us like that. Because if they did, we would not be having to go through as much trouble as we're going through to put homes on our own property. And to this day, we still don't have it. But when I read that story, it convicted my heart. It made me think about my mothers. And it made me think that I'm not doing enough, that I should be getting up doing more because they deserve better than that. And if it had not been for them, it would be no us. And so for them that, you know, every family got a set of thieves. Some family just got more than one set. But to see my mother struggling like the way she is, and to see how Douglas's grandma had to go through it, she died alone. Nobody even went to bury her. That's how bad it got. That's how dehumanized they made them. It won't no, let me go see about mama. It was none of that. They made them intentionally stay away from her. They took them kids away from their parents, their mothers, away from the mothers at a young age so they would not have any attachments, so they would not have any affection toward their parents. But yet we so proud to say the M-Ucka word. People running around. I know I'm going to hear it a lot now because I brought the topic up. But at least now when you hear it, you know what it means. You'll know exactly what it means. Somebody get around you saying that, they don't respect you. They don't care nothing about you. They don't care if you've been friends 20 years. Now that you know that this word means that you slept with your mama. And it means that this word was brought out. This was a bloodshed word. This is a bloody word. It's a bloody word. Men were beaten. Called this. One point in his book, he said he would sit there and watch them beat the women. They just, for some reason, around Frederick, they kept beating women. And he said, you know, as wide as a pencil is, that's how sometimes as wide as the gashes would be from that cow skin whipping on them. Let me see if I can read some more of this for you. Douglass wrote about the harshness of slavery in his autobiography, and some of these examples involve things that happened to family members. Douglas' grandmother Betsy raised Douglas on Captain Anthony's land after Douglas' mother was taken away. We said that already. But he had one story in there where it was this disabled girl, and the captain man, he just kept taking her out there. He would just whip her just to be whipping. Had no reason to whip her. She couldn't work. So she spent every day of her life getting whipped because she couldn't work. Her hands were messed up at birth. I know now that I put this out here, I know I'm going to have a lot of people coming around me cussing, saying that word, and just trying to try me to see if I am honoring what I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm perfect or anything like that. I don't really use that word like that. I'm going to tell you now. I prayed for God years ago because I used to be a cusser like that. I was a sailor boy. I'd cuss and swear all that stuff, and it didn't help me express nothing. It gave me stress, anxiety. It gave me headaches, high blood pressure, because sometimes when you're using those words like that, it's because you're upset, or either you're too anxious about something, and it doesn't really solve the problem. It just adds, it's a filter word for how you really feel. If you really say how you feel, you won't need that word. Okay, let me see if I can give y'all any more of Frederick Douglass's books. Let's see. At least some type of. I just want to read some narrative of life. But I don't see what I want to see. I was looking for like some commentary on it. It's so many good things just to go in there and read. I'm not saying it's good the things that happen, but go read. Douglas finally got his backbone when he came up against one of the toughest slave breakers named Mr. Convey or Covey, however they want to say it. Okay. Let me put in here an overview so I can just give y'all an overview. It's really good. And I never was interested in things like this. But as you get older, and like I say, since we have been experiencing gentrification over in this area, I have many family members right now that are displaced because of this grandfather clause and all that thing, because of these unconstitutional things. And, when you come from these poor families, they want to keep you poor. So they keep doing things to you. Just like right now, in my family, it's 4 of us who are down in our knees right now. I mean, come on now. It doesn't take a genius to realize that if everybody's going through the same thing, isn't it possible that somebody could be doing this to us? Reminds me of Cuba, the Havana syndrome. Those American workers went over there and said something hit them and they was never the same. And that's how it is here. Okay. These are some spark notes. Let's see. I need to be heating up mine because I'm finna get off of here. But y'all, just keep in mind that if you are one that likes to use that word, I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm just telling you the history behind this word is. This is what slave owners called. It's what slave owners called their slaves when they would make them do these dehumanizing things. Made them sleep with their mothers. You know, this breaking down of the man who they truly were. They got broke down. Douglas even said himself when he went to Kobe's to spend that year with him, it broke him down. His spirit got broken because he thought that he could handle some of the things that were going on, but it was hard because that man played so many manipulating games with them. He would pretend like the slave master would. He'd pretend like he would be leaving and he wouldn't leave. He would sneak up behind them. He was just so sneaky until, it broke him down for a while. Let me see here. Okay, yeah, I can read this to y'all. I'm going to read y'all this and then I'm going to go. After the deaths of Captain Anthony and his remaining heirs, Douglas is taken back to serve Thomas Auld. Captain Anthony's son-in-law, Auld, is a mean man, harsher by his false religious pity. Oh, by the way, this book is about some hypocrites. Toward the end of that book, he start calling out things that's happening now in the black church, not just the white church, but the black church. And it's just a testament that there's nothing new under the sun. Okay, but let me keep going because it was good. All considers Douglas. Okay, so this was a religious man, kind of like a preacher, but that's only why he preaching or only why he at church. But then when he come out of church, he switch up and become the hypocrite. Okay, let's go. Okay. Auld, a mean man, made harsher by false religious petty. Auld considers Douglas unmanageable, so Auld rents him for 1 year to Edward Covey, a man known for breaking enslaved people. Covey manages in the first 6 months to work and whip all the spirit out of Douglas. Douglas becomes a brutish man, no longer interested in reading or freedom. That means he succumbed to the mindset of being a slave. That's what that word brutish means, because I had to look it up. I did not know. He succumbed to that mindset. So now in his mindset, now he's no longer thinking about being free. He's no longer thinking about learning letters and numbers and knowing how to read and write, because his mind has been broken. His mindset has been broken and conditioned to be of a slave. Okay, let's keep going. Where'd I stop at? No longer interested in reading or freedom. Capable only of resting from his injuries and exhaustion. The turning point comes when Douglas resolves to fight back against Covey. The two men have a 2-hour fight. That thing was getting good. People wouldn't get in it. They were like, this y'all fight. Y'all gotta read it. I just paraphrased that. The two men had a 2-hour fight, after which Covey never touches Douglas again. His year with Covey over Douglas is next rented to William Freeland for 2 years. Though Freeland is a milder, fairer man, Douglas' will to escape is nonetheless renewed. At Freeland, Douglas begins educating his fellow enslaved people in a Sabbath school at the home of free black people. Despite the threat of punishment and violence they face, many enslaved people from neighboring farms come to Douglas and work diligently to learn. At Freelands, Douglas also forms a plan of escape with 3 fellow enslaved men with whom he is close. Someone betrays their plan to free land. Ain't that just like what we see today? Didn't I just tell y'all that that's what they do? They find the one that is the weakest link often has a lot of mouth and looks strong and looks cunning and looks witty, but doesn't have the sense enough to realize that you're hurting your own people. You're hurting yourself. You're keeping yourself in bondage. What you do to me and her or him and him, you've already done to yourself. So this man running his mouth. Oh, let me keep going. Someone betrays their plan to free land. However, Douglas and the others are taken to jail. Thomas Auld then sends Douglas back to Baltimore with Hugh Auld to learn the trade of ship caulking. In Baltimore's trade industry, Douglas runs up against strained race relations. White workers have been working alongside free black workers, but the whites have begun to fear that the increasing number of free black people will take their jobs. Though only an apprentice and still enslaved, Douglas encounters violent tactics of intimidation from his white workers and is forced to switch shipyards. In his new apprenticeship, Douglas quickly learns the trade of caulking and soon earns the highest wages possible, always turning them over to Hugh. Eventually, Douglas receives permission from Hugh Auld to hire out his extra time. He saves money bit by bit and eventually makes his escape to New York. Douglas refrains from describing the details of his escape in order to protect the safety of future slaves who may attempt the journey. In New York, Douglas fears recapture and changes his name from Bailey to Douglas. Soon after, he marries Anna Murray, a free woman he met while in Baltimore. They moved north to Massachusetts, where Douglas became deeply engaged with the abolitionist movement as both writer and orator. And that's as much as I'm going to give y'all. Now let me heat up my food so I can eat. It's a great read. Those of you... oh, excuse me. I got to take a sip of water. It's history. It's what's going on now. It's generational. Whether it's your kinfolk or not, this is still the possibilities of what's really happening. And it's really happening. I know people try to deny it, but it's a real thing. Let me see here. I need some. It's a real thing. It's going on in my family right now, and we're here in North Carolina. So, if you live in North Carolina, then you know how racist sometimes this state is. And how sometimes, I know we got those fruit black people who say, oh, but we passed that, and it's only that if you make it that. I know we got the fruit black people that say that. And those are also the fruit black people who don't have to live in your world, who don't understand what it's like to go through gentrification or to have people consistently coming in your house, still trying to control your mind and control your words and tell you what to say and what not to say by abusing you. It's tactics out here that are covert tactics that they use to abuse women like me. We still getting exploited. And that's probably why I felt so closely related with this story whenever he started talking about how the women were raped and how they were sexually exploited, how they were sold off from their children. They may not sell our children off right now, where they are doing it in some areas, but they still exploit us from our kids because they teach our kids all these different doctrines and confuse their minds and release all these drugs to these kids so that we are estranged from them, so that we have to turn them back over to them in the mental wards. They try to get me like that. They want us they either want us in the institution or working for them or behind bars. Now, I know it's 2024, but it's still happening. It's still going on. And if I could say it was otherwise, I would love to say it was otherwise. But it's not otherwise. Some of the lives you think you have are not really, the life you have is not really as difficult as it is. But when you have outside people that are working against you covertly, doing things, yeah, it makes life hard. I don't know what them slaves did back then. All I know is we can't forget about history, because it is trying to repeat itself. And it's okay if we get some things from history, but we don't want to go back to slavery. We don't want to keep getting treated like that. We don't want these things out here that are causing our children, these teachers. You know, certain teachers at your school that teach your children who will tell them, oh, you ain't got to listen to your mama, your daddy. We don't want our kids like that. You wonder why your kid is rebelling against you. Sometimes it's not always the friend that you think it is. Sometimes it's the school teacher. Sometimes it's the principal. Sometimes it's the gym. Sometimes it's the church. Somebody from the deacon, usher boy. You don't know. It may not be what you think. Somebody may pay somebody to do something to your children. To keep you in line. And that's all I got to say on that. I got to let it go. But it was a good discussion on it, and hope y'all got something out of it. I just thought it was fitting to talk about, and I want to talk about it. And I know that I'm guilty of using that word M-ucker, that M-ucker word, you know, back in the day. I would use that word, and I saw it around people who use that word, and most of the time the people who used that word around me were people who didn't have nothing to lose, who wasn't striving to be better, who wasn't trying to, they was in love with the word. What if it would have been the word of God? They could have been so much further ahead. But they was in love with using that word. And I picked up using it. By then I was like, yeah, cool word. Let me be like them. Then I just started using it. But now that I know better, I am going to do better. Not that I was using it lately or in the last few years. I mean, it's just something to think about, y'all. Something to think about. My pasta is heated up, and I'm going to eat. And until next time, I'm going to be talking about breast cancer awareness, but it won't be on this podcast. And it's going to be today. It's going to be on my other podcast, Keep Advancement. So if you are following, then you will get a notification. If you're not following, then how can I notify you? So go ahead and click that follow button. Peace, love, and happiness. Y'all have a great day.